Hi, my name's Rachel Andrews. Welcome to Everyday Athlete. I'd like to do a big welcome to my new subscribers this week. It's great to have more people along to talk to and to share my passion for outdoor swimming and being in the water in general. On this week's video, I thought we'd talk about tidal heights, and so interpreting the tidal information that we can get to decide when it's a good time to go for a swim or to take a paddleboard out or to launch our powerboat. There's lots of ways to find out about the height of tide in the area that you're going to go to, but I find that a quick look on the internet will pull you up lots of different resources, and let's take a look at a couple of those. So here's the most basic type, where we've got the name of the place we're doing it, which is Cowshot, and we've got the tide time for high and low water. You'll notice on this one we've got two sets of high water. That's because in this area there is a high water stand, which is peculiar to this area. But it doesn't make any difference for us interpreting that information. But for me, what I see on this page is a whole lot of numbers, and it's a little bit off-putting to be able to interpret. Let me show you an easier way. I tend to use easytide.com, which is information that's derived from the hydrographics office. This is the kind of thing that I can get. So this is 1 week's worth of data for Cowshot in terms of the high and the low water. And what you can see is that the high water and the low water are getting more pronounced as the week goes on, which means we're coming on to springs. So what that means for me in practice is that at low water, where there's 2 meters of water here today, by Tuesday next week we're down to only 1 meter of water, so that could significantly impact where I can actually swim. So this is the printout for this area on Saturday. And I particularly like going for the 1 day graph because I can see the information much more clearly. So I've got a low water that's at approximately 20 to 5 on Saturday morning of 1.2 meters, which we can see just here on the graph, just as it's getting light. And then high water up here is at 10:56 and it's 4 meters. So let's take a look at what those numbers really mean. Tides are calculated from chart datum, which is a point on the sea chart or the navigational chart where it marks as 0. So 0 being on the chart, the point where the green, which is sometimes wet, sometimes dry, turns to blue on this particular chart. So in this blue section here, it is always wet unless there is a huge high pressure and a really, really low water. So when the tide height at low water says 0, this is what the beach will look like. So the entire area all the way out here will be dry or sticky, but you'll be able to see it, and then the water will be a long way out. As it is, we've got all these little numbers on here, which I'm going to try and explain. If I come in nice and close, you should be able to see that on the green areas there are numbers with lines underneath them. Those lines mean that that is how high out the water they are if the height of tide is 0. What I've done here is written out the low water, LW, and the high water, times and heights. So in practical terms, what that means is that at 4:42 on Saturday morning, where this green line becomes a blue line, just here, that will be 1.2 meters deep. And similarly, at 4 minutes to 11, it will be 4 meters deep there. But we're not interested in how far away that is. We're interested in this area next to the beach. You might be able to make out that just underneath these dividers, just by the shadow there, it says 1 with a line underneath it and a small 2. Kind of like this one up here. So that is a drying height, and what that means is the lowest tide, it's likely to be 1.2 meters out of the water. So it's called a 1.2 meter drying height. So with that in mind, on Saturday morning at 4:42, with it being 1.2 meters of water on top of chart datum, that will mean that at this 1.2 meter drying height, it is the point where water becomes land. So that will be where your toes will just about get wet. So at low water, it's going to be as far out as this on Saturday. What I've done just here is I've circled the areas that were those 1.2 metre drying heights, and then I've linked them all together, which now shows me a map of what it should look like at 20 to 5 on Saturday morning, with areas where there's water and areas where there are sandbanks. Geography lesson is all very interesting, but what does it mean about when we can swim on Saturday morning? Let's take a look at that. Here's a little artist's impression, well, my impression of where I would like to swim on Saturday morning. This little swimmer here, just off the side of the spit at Cowshot. What I would need to know is when can I get in. So the first thing I have to do is identify what the biggest drying height is along that line, and I can see up by this pole here it's a drying height of 1.6. So that would mean, as I said before, that I would need 1.6 metres of tide to even get my toes wet. Next, I need to establish what depth of water I would like to swim in. Well, I'm about 1.75 metres tall, or around about 5'7", and I'd like to swim at least shoulder height, so let's see what that is. Trap it between my feet, not ever so technical this. Okay, so shoulder height is happily 150 centimetres or 1.5 metres. Let's try and work out how much tide do I need for that swim on Saturday morning. Well, I've got a drying height of 1.6 that I need to get over, and I also want to swim in 1.5 metres of water. So I add these two together, and that makes 3.1 metres. That's how much water I need to be able to swim. Now let's see what time I can swim from until. So what I've done here is got the tidal curve out again, and I've drawn a line from 3.1 metres, which is the amount of water I need, straight across until it hits the tide line. So then I take a line straight down from the tide line, and the dotted lines help with that, and I can see that at 9:30 I'm going to have 3.1 metres, so that's my get in time. And if I'm feeling really hardy, I could stay in all the way until about 2:45. So doing this allows me to understand when I've got that 3.1 metres of water, and so I could go swimming at any point in there. This has been a whistle-stop tour about tidal heights. There's lots of other things to consider before going for a coastal swim, such as whether there's any current and what the weather's doing, how windy it's going to be. But it's a good idea to check out the height of tide so you're not disappointed when you get there and find the water's all the way out and you've got to wait for hours. So hopefully you can add this little tool into your planning. I really hope you enjoyed this week's video, and that if you did, you'll consider giving it a like and dropping me a comment. Let me know about your experience at the coast. I've also got a video about how to choose a safe spot on the coast, and I'll link that below, along with the links to all the websites that I used during the video. It would be great to have you along as a subscriber too, so please click my little face and ding the little bell and you'll know when the next one's out. And I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye!